Nancy Drew's eyes were still shut after Ned's long, lingering kiss. She felt his breath on her ear as he uttered those magic words. A ripple of delight slid up her spine. Oh my, I'm not sure I'm old enough to be reading this book.
Argo Funk Book Review, Argo Funk Book Review.
Nancy and Ned are enjoying some romance together when they see another romantic couple, Nikki Masters and Dan Taylor. Ignore the cover art because Nikki is a blonde 16-year-old. The same month this book came out, they started a teen romance series about Nikki called River Heights. So this book is both our introduction to Nikki and the publisher's desperate plea to read the new series. Nancy goes shopping with her friends and she stumbles upon a mystery. Someone is robbing the same clothing store over and over again. Obviously, the guilty party is manager Trisha Rapp because she's introduced with a culprit giveaway. Seriously, why would the book describe the sneaky look on her face if she's not the culprit? The other employees at the store include Charlene the nice girl, Tony, her overprotective boyfriend, and Max, the shady stock boy. Nikki gets into a huge fight with Dan, and she comes to Nancy for relationship advice. I guess Nancy counts as a romance expert since it's been about a year since she last cheated on Ned. That's a record for this series. Dan has been lying to Nikki for months about pretty much everything. She tried breaking up with him, and ever since he's become creepy and desperate. He won't leave her alone, he keeps talking about death, and he just gave her a necklace that was stolen from the clothing store. Yeah, this guy's bad news. Stay away from him, Nikki. Nancy confirms that Dan worked at the clothing store, and he was fired for lying about his references. He's not the only liar at the store. Nancy sees all of the suspects at the movies that night, and every single one of them says they were somewhere else. It's not like going to the movies is scandalous or anything, so what gives? Dan tries to break into Nikki's house, and Nancy decides to trail him for a while. He goes to an arcade where Max the stock boy slams him against the wall and beats him up. Either Max takes his arcade games very seriously, or Dan is up to no good again. Around the middle of the book, Nancy goes to a party where she meets a bunch of characters who will be regulars in the River Heights series. Maybe this is their book release party. Nancy asks around and she learns that Dan crashed the party to talk with Nikki. She let him down gently by talking to him on the back porch for an hour, then driving off in his car. Nikki, that's not the right way to break up with a guy! A bedraggled Nikki stumbles in at 11 o'clock. She says that Dan drove her into the woods and started pressuring her to date him again. They got into a fight and she ran away on foot. When Nancy checks out the area for herself, she finds a bunch of police officers. Dan was murdered. At the same time, Nikki said they had an argument. Ooh, not good. Brenda Carlton is at the crime scene, and it's not explained how she learned about the murder so quickly. Either she listens to police radio chatter, or the author forgot that it's midnight. Speaking of, you'd think Nikki's parents would be a little more upset their 16-year-old came home at midnight with ripped clothing. There are a few chapters of Nikki getting harassed by her schoolmates and the police, while Nancy wraps up the various subplots at the clothing store. Turns out that Max and Charlene lied about going to the movies because they're secretly dating behind her boyfriend's back. Also, the stolen necklaces were from Denver, the same place that Trisha comes from. Thanks to that hard evidence, Nancy knows Trisha is the culprit. Nancy exposes Trisha in the most dramatic way possible. Ned poses as one of Dan's accomplices when Nikki bursts into the room with a gun. She screams her head off and pretends to shoot him. He collapses in a pool of fake blood, and Trisha immediately confesses everything to save her own skin. You know, Nikki, pretending to kill Ned is not going to put an end to the rumors that you're a killer. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, it's Nancy and Ned's anniversary! What better way to celebrate than with Ned faking his own death to catch a criminal? In Nancy Drew's mind, that's very romantic. Also, Ned pretends to be a Canadian Mountie. That's also supposed to be romantic. I think their relationship needs some work. Nikki is further exonerated when they discover that the time of death was an hour earlier. The mix-up was because Dan's watch was on Denver time. Nobody bothers to ask what Dan was doing during this missing hour, so we're left to guess that he stayed put in his car, parked in the middle of the woods the whole time. Sure, why not? The end. Post-book follow-up. Both Amazon and Goodreads say this book is about a serial killer in Hollywood. I have no idea where they got that summary from. The book has 2 scenes with Dan's parents. They are clueless and have no idea that their son is a crook. Also, they mistake Nancy for Dan's new girlfriend. Those were interesting scenes, but the scene I liked most was the one with Nancy and Chief McGinnis debating the case. It's interesting because they have different methodologies and evidence. Nancy knows all about Dan's life, but she hasn't seen the crime scene, while McGinnis only knows what was found at the crime scene. I mention the interesting scenes because I think that was the highlight of this book. It has interesting scenes with characters doing and saying things that kept my attention. Not much was happening plot-wise, but I found it an engaging read. Other reviewers say the exact opposite. They don't like Nikki in her constant, "Oh, I'm so sad" drama. They don't like how Nikki's story comes to dominate the book, pushing everything else into the background. They especially didn't like how everything was put on hold for a while, so the book could introduce all the characters in the River Heights series. So I guess Nikki is the deciding factor of the book. If you don't like her, you'll dislike this book. I liked her, so I liked this book. I feel like they put a lot of effort into this book, probably because it's the pilot for their new book series. The effort certainly shows, so I say good job. Even if the mystery was halfway phoned in. I give Nancy Drew Files number 39, The Suspect Next Door, a 9 out of 10.